became their best friends. We've known each other since we were 11 years old. When Paul Simon and Art Garfunkel were together, both in their music and in their friendship, they were the picture of unity. But behind the beautiful singing and poetic words, tension had been building for decades that finally broke up their relationship. Fans have been guessing for years about why they broke up, but Simon has never been clear about what caused them to split. The silence is over now, and the truth is worse than anyone thought it would be. The breakup wasn't like a normal band fight. It was a very personal fight between two guys who had known each other since youth. They started out as two boys from Queens, New York, and worked hard to become one of the most successful music groups of all time. Their road was full of ups and downs. Their music became famous because of Garfunkel's hauntingly angelic voice, even though Simon wrote most of the songs. But the uneven power over creativity would finally turn admiration into anger. People have been wondering for years, why couldn't Simon and Garfunkel make up? Was it jealousy, a lack of creativity, or something much more personal? Some people thought they were going to break up, while others hoped they could get back together. Now, many years later, Paul Simon has told the truth about what happened and why their relationship was doomed from the start. Power differences often lead to fights in the world of music duos. There's always the question of who is the real star, even though both artists have helped each other succeed. This problem was always there for Simon and Garfunkel, but they never talked about it directly. When Simon recently talked about how their friendship had broken up, he made it clear that it wasn't just about music. It was about identity, power, and years of hidden anger. Paul Simon has finally told the truth about his relationship with Simon and Garfunkel, and the news has shocked the music world. What made things finally break? Why did their relationship break down for good? What's more, could they have ever found their way back to each other? No one ever thought that the answers to these questions would be so difficult. Before they were Simon and Garfunkel, they were just Paul and Art, two kids from Queens who became close through music. They met in elementary school and quickly became friends. They liked the Everly Brothers so much that they would sneak out of class and sing in the halls. They shared a cigarette behind their school as their first act of defiance. It was a small thing that would mistakenly start a trip that would last a lifetime. They found out they both loved singing when they were only 11 years old. By the time they were teenagers, they had started their first band, Tom and Jerry. They didn't have a name as familiar as Simon and Garfunkel, but it was enough to get their first hit, Hey Schoolgirl, on the Billboard lists. This early success could have made their relationship stronger, but instead it made them angry at each other. Simon composed the songs and put a lot of thought into the words, while Garfunkel only provided his singing. But to the public, it looked like the roles were switched. People thought Garfunkel was the lead singer and star of the band, while Simon, who wrote the songs, often got lost in the background. Simon was very angry about this mistake. People didn't see it that way, but he knew he was the brains behind the business even back then. Then there was the hurtful deception that would never go away. A record producer asked Simon to work on a project by himself, and Simon agreed without telling Garfunkel. It broke Garfunkel's heart to hear the news. Most of all, he felt like he had been left behind and had been used. The first big fight they had with each other. They got over it, but the wound never really healed. Throughout their career, they would have times when they got along well and times when they betrayed each other. Over the years, the first crack in their friendship grew into a huge gap that they could never cross. By the early 1960s, both Simon and Garfunkel had moved on from being in a young band together and were doing their own things. Simon was still set on making it in the music business, while Garfunkel was studying design at Columbia University. Then fate stepped in. Simon had written a song called The Sound of Silence. It was sad and beautiful. They had never done anything like it before, and when they got back together to record it, neither of them knew that it would change their lives forever. At first, the song didn't do well. Their first record was called Wednesday Morning. 3 didn't do very well on the charts, and the two quietly went their different ways again. After that, though, a miracle happened. Producer Tom Wilson took The Sound of Silence, added modern instruments, and put it out as a single without telling them. It became a huge hit almost overnight. The two became famous all of a sudden, but there was a catch. Simon hadn't been told about the changes that were made to his song. While everyone else was happy, he was furious. Garfunkel only cared about how well he did. He was ready to enjoy the attention, but Simon felt like he had lost control of his songs again. Even though he was thankful for the success, he didn't like how it had happened. He had put everything he had into that song, but someone changed it without his permission. He had no choice but to ride the wave of their new fame, though. Even though the effects of The Sound of Silence were small, they marked the start of a war between the two. Garfunkel was happy to do what the business needed, but Simon was getting more and more angry that he didn't have any artistic power. As their popularity grew, so did the stress. And if The Sound of Silence was their big hit, then Bridge Over Troubled Water was their big loss. The song, which was written by Simon, was meant to show how close they were as friends and make one last big statement about it. Instead, it became a sign that they were going to break up soon. Simon had planned for the song to be a simple duet, but Garfunkel insisted that Simon sing it by himself. Simon agreed at first because he thought it would be best for the song, but as the song gained steam and became one of their biggest hits, he started to feel bad about his choice. Even though he wrote the song and put a lot of effort into it, Garfunkel got all the credit. Things got even worse when Garfunkel got a part in Catch-22 and Simon had to finish the last album by himself. It was the worst kind of deception. He felt alone, just like he did when Garfunkel left him for college years before. He had to carry the weight of their success alone, and the anger got too much for him to handle. When Bridge Over Troubled Water came out, their relationship was already too broken to fix. It was hard for them to talk, and their last act together was just a ritual. They shook hands and left each other in the parking lot after the show. There were no goodbyes or last words, just quiet. It was clear that Simon and Garfunkel were jealous of each other, even though they got along so well on stage. Garfunkel's soaring singing gave him a level of celebrity status that Simon disliked, even though Simon was the one writing the songs that launched them to fame. They were not equal, and it would hurt their relationship for years. Paul Simon never openly voiced his jealousy during their peak, but behind closed doors, it was an unspoken fight. When fans screamed Art Garfunkel's name at shows, Simon couldn't help but feel ignored. He was the genius, the one who carefully created the words and songs, but to the world it was Garfunkel's angelic voice that stole the show. People knew Garfunkel as the singer whose angelic voice made those songs come to life. That big difference made Simon's mouth feel bad, even though they were selling out stadiums all over the world. Mort Lewis, who was their boss, could feel the stress. He once noticed that each man privately wished they had what the other had. He hoped he had Garfunkel's easygoing stage appearance, but Garfunkel knew deep down that he wouldn't have a career without Simon's songs. They didn't talk about their differences. Instead, they let them get worse, and every little argument turned into a new fight in their silent war. It was the last straw when Bridge Over Troubled Water, Simon's best song, was praised as Garfunkel's defining moment. Simon had planned for the song to be a soft duet-style ballad, but Garfunkel took over and belted out the song with dramatic grandeur. Fans were mesmerized, and reviewers said Garfunkel's voice was beautiful. Simon thought he had just given away his work. On the other hand, Garfunkel had his own problems. He'll never fully understand why Simon felt hurt. He thought that singing the way he always had was just his job. They were talking to each other so badly that it was crazy, and it was too late when they realized they were on different sides of a war. When they broke up in 1970, it was a small, quiet end to a famous relationship. Simon and Garfunkel stopped talking, which was very different from how other bands ended. There was no dramatic farewell show or goodbye tour. Instead, they just shook hands in the parking lot, as if they both knew it was time to end. The music business was shocked. Why would two guys quit when they had just put out one of the best records of all time, Bridge Over Troubled Water? Fans begged Simon and Garfunkel for answers, but they never came up with any. To be honest, they were both worn out. They were tired of fighting, of feeling like they owed each other something, and most of all, they were tired of acting like everything was fine. Garfunkel was sure that they would get back together one day. He never thought that they would break up for good, and he thought that they would get back together when the time was right. He had a different plan, though. His goal wasn't just to break, but to be free for good. He felt trapped when he thought about going back to the business. He was free to make songs however he wanted for the first time in years. Their lives couldn't have been more different in the years that followed. Simon focused on his solo business while Garfunkel tried his hand at acting and starred in Catch-22 and Carnal Knowledge. Some of his best songs, like 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover and Still Crazy After All These Years, showed that he didn't need Garfunkel. But Garfunkel had a hard time. He got angry about how history was being written because his solo records never did as well as Simon. People thought Simon was a genius when it came to music, but Garfunkel was slowly being seen as just the guy who sang the songs. That thought hit him like a ton of bricks. Even though they had been apart for a long time, fate brought them back together several times over the years. Each time, bad things happened. The best time they had together was at their show in Central Park in 1981. Fans from more than 500,000 different countries came to see the famous pair act together again. But things were anything but happy behind the scenes. In practices, old hurts came back to the surface. Garfunkel was still sure that they could work together again, but Simon wouldn't let him. He had spent 10 years showing that he could live without Garfunkel, and he didn't want to be tied down to him again. Simon saw the get-together as a one-time thing, not the start of something new. Fans didn't know how tense things were on stage. It looked like old friends synchronizing without any trouble, like no time had passed. But as soon as they left the stage, they didn't say much. Simon only had business to do at the get-together, nothing else. They were finally broken up when they tried to make a new album together. Simon was a stickler who had a clear idea of how it should sound, but Garfunkel wouldn't be treated like a backup singer. As the fights got worse, Simon did the unthinkable. He took out Garfunkel's singing and put out the songs as a solo project. Garfunkel was caught off guard. Even after everything that had happened, he still thought that they could be friends. But Simon's deeds made it painfully clear that Simon and Garfunkel would not be together again. The dream was over. They didn't say anything about their anger for decades. Fans had theories, but until now, neither Simon nor Garfunkel gave a clear answer about what really happened between them. Simon didn't hold back when he recently talked about how their relationship had ended. He talked about the betrayals, the anger, and the bitterness that would never go away. But what was his most shocking revelation? He didn't want to see Garfunkel ever again. Longtime fans felt like they got hit in the gut when they heard those words. It broke my heart to think that two guys who used to always be together could now barely stand the thought of each other. Their music will always be loved, even if Simon and Garfunkel never get back together. Their songs captured the spirit of a time, and even though they were angry at each other, their sounds made something timeless. But the truth of their story shows that even the closest friendships can break down when one person feels too successful. They used to be two kids who just loved singing, but becoming famous changed them. Their friendship was based on music, but ego got in the way and ended it. Do not forget to leave a comment below. Also, please like and follow for more in-depth looks into the biggest secrets of music.